Imagine yourself floating alone in the ocean, miles from land, watching the sun disappear over the horizon as sharks lurk in the depths below you. Or descending into an abandoned well to rescue your beloved pet, unaware that every meter brings you closer to an invisible and silent death. These are the terrifying realities faced by our protagonists today. Two stories that will chill you to the bone and make you think twice before your next adventure. Our first story takes us to the turquoise and treacherous waters off the coast of Indonesia, where what should have been a dream vacation turned into a nightmarish struggle for survival that lasted several days. The second plunges us into the deadly depths of an abandoned mine, where the air itself becomes your worst enemy. February 14, 2014. While the whole world was celebrating Valentine's Day, 7 Japanese women were about to experience the most terrifying ordeal of their lives. But make no mistake, these were not reckless novices. Each of them had more than 50 successful dives under their belts. They were well aware of the dangers of the ocean and scrupulously followed all safety protocols. Yet sometimes, even experience is not enough when nature decides to show its cruelest face. Their destination was Crystal Bay, off the coast of Nusa Penida, a true underwater paradise southeast of Bali. Crystal clear waters, coral reefs teeming with life, breathtaking underwater landscapes. A dream come true for any self-respecting diver. But Crystal Bay hides a deadly secret. This region lies within the famous Coral Triangle, where ocean currents of incredible power can surge without warning, turning paradise into a death trap in a matter of seconds. What makes this place so dangerous are the sudden changes in water density near the thermocline, the invisible boundary where warm surface water meets the icy depths. When conditions are right, the water itself becomes a trap, creating downward currents so powerful that they can drag even the most experienced swimmers into the abyss. The morning had started so well. Clear skies, calm seas, optimism in the air. The 7 women had already completed 2 perfect dives, exploring the magical underwater world with wonder. Everything was going exactly as planned. For their third dive of the afternoon, they headed for the mangroves on the northeast side of Nusa Penida Island. The captain of the boat they had chartered was supposed to follow their movements, staying close enough to pick them up as soon as they resurfaced. It's basic protocol, your lifeline to safety. But that's when everything started to go spectacularly wrong. As they explored the seabed, dark clouds began to gather above their heads. In this region, the weather can change in a matter of minutes, and they were diving during the monsoon season, from October to April, when violent storms are most common. When the 7 divers finally resurfaced, expecting to see their boat waiting peacefully for them, they found nothing. An empty ocean stretched out in every direction. Their captain had simply vanished. Furukawa, the dive leader, immediately fired a distress flare into the sky. It was a desperate signal for help. The red flare traced an arc across the darkening sky before fading away. There was no response, no boat on the horizon. Then nature unleashed its fury. The storm hit like a train traveling at full speed. Within seconds, a massive downcurrent engulfed the 7 divers and threw them into the open ocean like toys in a giant washing machine. They desperately tried to stay together, clinging to each other as the relentless current spun them around in the water. Imagine being caught in an underwater tornado, tumbling helplessly as thousands of tons of water carry you further and further away from safety. Your training tells you to stay calm, but every instinct screams that you are going to die. Meanwhile, their captain finally showed up at the dive site a full hour after they disappeared. He spent another hour searching through monster waves and pouring rain, but the once clear waters had turned dark and violent. Visibility was 0. Finally, he gave up and reported the incident to the Indonesian Maritime Police. 7 women were now alone in the middle of the ocean, with night falling fast. When the divers finally managed to resurface after being tossed around underwater, their real nightmare was just beginning. They were now in the middle of the Lombok Strait, 20 kilometers from their last known position. Miles and miles of empty ocean surrounded them in every direction. Floating in the ocean may seem peaceful, but it is actually a slow death sentence. The tropical sun beats down mercilessly during the day, while at night the water temperature drops enough to cause hypothermia. Dehydration sets in quickly, and exhaustion makes it almost impossible to stay afloat. And then there are the predators. Sharks, jellyfish, and other sea creatures see humans floating in the water as prey or threats. On Saturday morning, one day after they went missing, Furukawa made a desperate decision. She spotted a tugboat in the distance and broke away from the group, swimming frantically to try to attract the crew's attention. but the same currents that had trapped them prevented her from reaching the boat or returning to her companions. The 6 remaining divers faced a new crisis. They had managed to reach a coral reef and were trying to climb onto the rocks when disaster struck again. Monumental waves swept away Takahashi, one of the instructors, and Miyata. Takahashi was trying to help Miyata when the ocean claimed them both. Only 4 survivors remained, clinging to the coral in the middle of nowhere. The 4 survivors, Yamamoto, Tomita, Morizono, and Yoshino, had to think fast. They collected rainwater with their fins and any plastic bottles that washed up near them. When coconuts floated by, they grabbed them for precious fresh water. Every drop meant life. For 3 endless days and nights, they clung to the reef. 3 days of scorching sun, freezing nights, dehydration, and constant fear that the next wave would be their last. Search planes flew overhead, but they couldn't see them against the dark coral. On Monday, February 17th, a local fisherman spotted something unusual near South Manta Point. Signs of people stranded on a reef. The currents were still too dangerous for him to attempt a rescue, but he immediately alerted the authorities. When the rescue boat finally reached them, the 4 women were sunburned, dehydrated, and exhausted, but alive. They could walk, talk, and incredibly, their spirits were not completely broken. But their relief was short-lived. Furukawa was found separately on another rocky outcrop, her injuries more serious and requiring evacuation by helicopter. And Takahashi and Miyata were still missing. While rescue teams searched for the last 2 divers, investigators began questioning the boat's captain. His story didn't add up. The survivors confirmed the worst. Their captain had abandoned them. When they resurfaced from their 3rd dive, he had simply disappeared. The police arrested him for negligence, resulting in at least 1 death, possibly 2. On Tuesday, local swimmers found a body believed to be one of the missing divers. The ocean had done its work, making identification difficult. But when authorities brought the remains to Miyata's family, her husband and daughter recognized her wedding ring, still on her finger after 3 days in the water. An autopsy confirmed she had been dead for 3 days. Takahashi was still out there somewhere. The search continued until Thursday, when authorities announced they had to call it off. But the ocean wasn't done with this story. On March 17th, more than a month later, a fisherman in Malang, East Java province, made a gruesome discovery. A decapitated body, with no hands or feet, had washed ashore about 200 kilometers from the original dive site. Despite the horrific condition of the remains, the fisherman suspected that it could be Takahashi. With no dental records available, a DNA test was the only way to confirm the identity. The authorities transported the remains to a hospital in Bali, where Takahashi's husband identified his wife's body from the clothes inside her wetsuit. 7 women had gone on a diving trip for Valentine's Day. 5 returned home alive, but forever scarred. 2 families lost daughters, wives, and mothers to the unforgiving sea. But that was only the beginning of our exploration of the deadly dangers that surround us. For our second story reveals how a loving pet owner's rescue mission became a fatal encounter with an invisible killer. May 26, 2003. The abandoned mine in Maryland near Salmon, Idaho, stood as a forgotten relic of the region's mining past. Its aging structures hid deadly secrets beneath the earth. Travis McKellis, 25, an experienced climber, had come here with his family for what should have been a simple exploration of the historic site. The family's exploration of the mine site was proceeding normally until their dog, driven by curiosity and the hunting instincts common to canines, ran ahead of the group. The animal's investigation of the mining structures turned to disaster when it fell into a 38-foot-deep vertical mine shaft that had been concealed or poorly marked. The dog's disappearance into the vertical opening transformed a casual family outing into an emergency situation that required immediate decision-making on rescue options.